It is the 9 o'clock news local edition on Rock 93.7, and this week we are sitting down with Derek Lester. Derek, whereabouts are you from?
I'm from Monticello, Kentucky, just right up the road a little piece.
Well, I appreciate you taking that little piece of a drive. You call it a little piece. It's not a short trip to get here.
It's not too bad. It's a little over an hour. It's a good drive. I appreciate you having me down here. I really do. I appreciate it.
Well, you heard about our show and decided you wanted to send us some stuff, which is great because one of the things that we've done for this show from day one is trying to get the word out that it's not just bands that are from where we're from, but bands that are within the area. So it's local is redefined on this show.
Right, true.
But your music definitely fits into that category. So what kind of music do you play?
I'm a rock and roll guy. I mean, that's what I grew up on. I love all different genres of music, but at the end of the day, it just keeps coming back to just basic, straight ahead rock and roll. That's what I do.
Who's your main influences?
I have to, if I had to put one particular band out there, it'd be AC/DC. I mean, Bon Scott era AC/DC to me is just the epitome of just good, straight ahead rock and roll. There's so many other great bands, Zeppelin, Maiden, Rush, all these other bands. I mean, just millions of bands, but AC/DC, I just find myself coming back to that.
You said Bon Scott era. How do you make the distinction as far, other than, well, Brian sang on these tracks, do you think it was that much of a departure in the sound, or? I
think it was a lot more raw. You know, I think it had a lot more street vibe to it. I love Brian Johnson. I love AC/DC, everything they've done. Back in Black is an amazing album, but I thought that Bon Scott was just the epitome of, to me, when I think of a rock and roll singer and a rock star, I think of two people, Nikki Sixx and Bon Scott. You know, those are the people who come to my mind when I think of rock stars.
The influence of Bon Scott as far as the rock star image, does that come into play with the music that you're making? Or?
Yeah, absolutely. It does. I like to just keep everything just straight ahead and just simple rock. I just, something with a good, strong backbeat that grooves, that people tap their foot to. They don't even realize it. I mean, that's when I know that I'm doing what I'm supposed to do. When I look out into the crowd, if I'm performing live or if I see somebody listening to my music or whatever, if they're tapping their foot, then I know it's good.
So that influences you, but do you hold that as a measuring stick? Do you go, well, it doesn't quite match that level of that, or do you just kind of general feel?
I just go with the general feel. I couldn't even imagine anything that I write being on the same level as these guys. You know, I mean, those guys they're just a whole different level of musician and people. So I'm just lucky I just make noise and hope I'm in the right key.
What's interesting is I'm pretty sure Bon Scott said something similar when he was just starting out, so.
Well, that's he's amazing. I mean, he's the man. He really is. To me, he was the man. So,
well, how about if we start out by giving them a listen to some of the songwriting that you have been doing now? You're working when you did these songs that were in a solo capacity, or do you have a band?
These songs were written about 96 live. They're recorded in analog studio and they're recorded live. That's what we sounded like. When we recorded these songs, that's what we sounded like. So I'm very, very, very proud of.
And now you're translating those into a new project too, which we'll get into the new project a little bit later and talk about what you're working on now, where you're at. But how about if we start off with tonight, Your Love is a Rumor.
All right.
Where does that one come from?
I had written a guitar riff and come up with a song title. That's all I had. Whenever I took it to him, I thought, you know, the riff is pretty cool, and I don't know where the title came from. So we was getting ready to perform it live. We were getting ready to play live, and I said, man, let's do that new song. And the guy who's singing on, his name's Keelan Gregory, amazing musician. He said, I don't have the words finished. And I said, well, let's just wing it. So these words were written. He had an idea, but he actually wrote these lyrics on stage. I mean, so that just goes to tell what kind of artist he is. He's an amazing
You mentioned
musician.
raw rock earlier. I don't think you get any more raw than that. So how about if we give it a listen? It's Your Love is a Rumor. It's Derek Lester on the 9 o'clock news local edition on Rock 93.7. It is the 9 o'clock news local edition on Rock 93.7. Back in tonight with Derek Lester, hailing from up around Monticello. He's taking the time to come in, and the music that we're hearing is actually something that you had worked on previously. You're putting together a new group.
Correct.
Have you got a name for the group yet?
Yeah, the band's called Blind Peace. It's a 3-piece band from Monticello, Albany area up there, and it's blues-based rock and roll. It's just straight ahead rock and roll. Nothing fancy. We're not trying to reinvent the wheel. We're just trying to have a good time.
Guitar, bass, drums,
That's
just simple 3-piece that way.
Yep.
You're handling the vocal duties, or
no? Tony Sale, our guitar player, does the vocal duties.
as far as taking your material, and are they reworking what you've done, or are they adding something new to what you're doing? Or?
It's kind of yes and no. It's a combination of that. I've taken some stuff. There was one song that I had written actually at the same time that these songs were written. It's called Rebel Sun, and actually we just won an award on that. That song was just voted best hard rock ballad.
Nice.
April 2015 from the Academia institution out in Los Angeles. So we're really proud of that. But for the most part, the songs are written. These guys put their own twist on it, just like anything that they had before I came in. I get to kind of put my own twist on it. So, that's kind of where it's at. I mean, I'm not that guy. I like for everybody to have their own voice in a song, even if I've written it or whatever. I think everybody to put it across, I think they need to have their own voice.
When you started looking for people to put together a band, was that the goal? Was it, I want to put together a new band, or was it you got stumbled upon by these people?
Actually, a mutual friend of Tony's and myself introduced us. Tony was a bass player professionally back in the 90s in Nashville, as was I. And he's from Albany. I'm from Monticello. Never knew him. I don't know how we never met, but he decided to switch over to guitar and vocals. So he's looking for a bass player, and a mutual friend introduced us. And what was really interesting about the project was that Tony was wanting to do original music. He didn't want to do a bunch of cover music. He wanted to do original music. And I'd played cover music for years, as had he. So it was just kind of nice and very interesting to meet people who were like-minded. Whenever we got together and played, it was just like putting on an old shoe, man. It was comfortable. And I mean, we've been playing for a couple of years now.
So was the drummer the sock?
I guess he's the sock. He's the young sock. He's the young, good-looking one in the band.
Well, I just figured we'd go ahead and ride that all the way out there.
Why not? Absolutely.
The foot, the shoe, and the sock. Well, so how did the drummer then? What's the drummer's name?
The drummer's name's Philip Inman. He's actually Tony's nephew from Tony's first wife, which is kind of how the whole project got started. It's his first wife, Kathy, developed lung cancer, and they, of course, obviously their lives changed, and she during the process had told Tony she wanted him to get back into playing music, and the name Blind Peace comes from her. She said that she was just searching for some peace, throughout this battle. She ultimately lost her battle with cancer. She was Philip's aunt by blood, so that's how Tony and Philip met. Whenever this tragedy struck, what Tony wanted to do, and what we've decided to do, is everything we do, we donate a portion of our earnings toward cancer research and cancer awareness. We try to, I mean, everybody's been affected by cancer, everybody. That's the cause for it was amazing, because at the time these guys got a hold of me, my mother was battling cancer. She's survived it, but, thank God. But that drew me. The fact that these guys are wanting to do original music drew me. Then as we've gotten together, we lost a couple of members. It started out as a 5-piece, and now we're down to 3-piece. And that's just because of scheduling. The other guys, their scheduling wouldn't allow them to maybe take it as serious. And these guys, they've just turned into some of my best friends in the world, and it's just a lot of fun. I mean, you can't beat playing music with the people that you just enjoy hanging out with.
Whether you call it divine intervention, hand of providence, or kismet, whatever terms you use, sounds like it was just meant to come together.
It feels that way. It really does. It feels that way. And these guys get it. They get me. You know what I mean? And, God bless them for that. I mean, because very few people do.
Well, I tell you what, we're going to continue talking about you and Blind Peace, what you guys are working on. Play another one of your songs and do that as we continue on the 9 o'clock news local edition on Rock 93.7. It is the 9 o'clock news local edition on Rock 93.7, discussing rock and roll, what gets into it, what makes it tonight, with Derek Lester and what makes your music. He was telling me earlier that he kind of patterns after Bon Scott a little bit.
I wish I could say I pattern after him. He's a big influence.
Well, as far as making the music, I think the lifestyle is probably best left to the side.
Yeah, it
didn't go too well for him.
It didn't work out well for him, and it wouldn't me either. I'm a married man, so it wouldn't work out well for me either.
So how often do you manage to get out and perform?
Well, Blind Peace doesn't perform a whole lot. We get out, we play maybe every couple of months. We've got where we do original music. It's hard for us to find venues that will just let us come in and do original music. We got about 2 hours. The way we like to do our shows is we try to make it an event. we don't do like 30 or 45 minutes and then take a break. I mean, we'll play an hour and a half, 2 hours straight through. We want to make it more of an event. We want people to feel like they're at a concert at a stadium. I mean, we want to, whether we're opening the show and we only have 45 minutes or whether we're closing the show and we have an hour and a half, we want the crowd to be able to escape with us for whatever length of time we've got on stage.
So it's a little bit more than just, here's a couple of songs and now here's the DJ.
Right.
You're more interested in actually performing for the crowd and giving them something.
We want to perform. It's an escape for us. And, from everybody has, money's tied everywhere. Everybody has things going on in their life that's bad enough. And it's an escape for me. It's what keeps me sane from my job. And if I can do that, give that same opportunity to whether it be 10 people, 100 people, 1,000 people, then, if they can get away and escape for a while, for a couple hours with us, then we've done our job.
You said that you guys had you and Tony had kind of ran in the same circle when you were both performing in Nashville as professional musicians, but never really bumped into each other.
Never met that either one of us can remember. So
getting together now and forming this band, you have come to the realization that you fit well together. But when you have to get out in front of people and perform, that changes the aspect.
It does. And our first show was a benefit that we put together to raise money for cancer research. So we went full blown production. We had full blown sound. We rented some gear. We had one of our production companies come in, and actually it's Pro Audio Video. They do for everybody from Kiss, Aerosmith. I mean, they're all over.
Didn't you just tell me earlier you really try not to set Bon Scott's standard as your measuring stick? First time out of the gate, you put on a big production.
Yeah, it was huge. We had video, we had audio. I mean, it was amazing. And actually, we recorded part of it. Well, we recorded the whole show video, but we put some of it on YouTube. Our very first show ever together, and the drummer's first show ever. So we didn't know what to expect, and we just went for it. And it worked out great. It worked out well. We called in a friend of mine from Nashville to come up and play guitar with us. And the show was on Saturday. He comes up and he learned the music Friday night, actually early Saturday morning. He got in town about 2:00 and we rehearsed with him for about a half hour, 45 minutes. And then he went out and done an hour and a half show with us the next day. Amazing talent, just unbelievable. Guy blows me away.
So it went without a hitch. Things went nicely. And from there, you just decided, this is going to be a great thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Once that show was done, there was really no question for me. And I think Tony would agree with that. In our experience, whenever you find that's pretty special. So we just, we jumped on it and have been kind of riding it out ever since.
Well, that's part of your future. And you've been working with some of your history, combining it into that, some of your older songs. In fact, why don't we take a listen to one of your other songs that I think you said you guys have been working up. Backwoods?
Yeah, that song's now in the Blind Peace live set.
Well, where does it come from?
It's actually a song about a bootlegger. I mean,
in Kentucky?
In Kentucky,
No.
right? It's a song about a guy who was, and it's actually based on a real guy. He just made a little whiskey on the side, tried to take care of his family, and didn't go all that well for him, but as with most people, he
did
got
you come
caught.
up with the story or the riff? Where did one inspire the other?
Yeah, it's the music just kind of happened, and the singer, the guy singing, Keelan Gregory, he said, you know what, I've got an idea about about a storyline, and it just all came together. We just sat there and banged the song out, and by the time we left that night, the song was pretty well done. So
right. Let's share that with him now. This is Backwoods. It's Derek Lester, the 9 o'clock news local edition on Rock 93.7. It is the 9 o'clock news local edition on Rock 93.7. We've been talking this evening with Derek Lester, hailing from around Monticello, Kentucky. He's been nice enough to come down, talk to us about the music that he's been working on. You've been doing it for a really long time. When did you first start playing?
I started playing when I was about 13. I started playing serious. Well, I mean, to me at that time it was serious. At about 13, and I just fell in love with it. The album Highway to Hell changed my life. Then I heard Number of the Beast, and I couldn't believe that there was a bass player that was that prominent. You know what I mean? And And then I just took off from there and been playing ever since.
Probably one of the more underrated components of a band, I'm going to say, is probably the bass player.
Well, I like to think so. I mean, the reason that people dance is because of what I'm doing, what bass players are doing. And I've always been a bass player. That's the thing. I think a lot of people think that if you're a bass player, you're a failed guitarist.
No, that is so far from the truth.
And so whenever I heard Steve Harris, when I heard Geddy Lee and when I heard these guys, it's like, wait a minute, these guys can, and I'm not trying to compare myself to those guys, but their approach to it.
I think if you take the time and you go look at what Geddy's done and, or even hang it on YouTube nowadays, you can go on YouTube and check out a lot of things. Go check out Les Claypool.
Yeah. Yeah.
You want to see what can be done with the bass. Go spend a little time watching something that he's done or something like that. So I say underrated because most people just, you're not the lead guitarist and you're not the drummer and you're not the singer. What do you do?
Exactly.
So I think the bass player and maybe the rhythm guitarist, probably the two most underappreciated members of the band.
Yeah, I think so. I think so too.
Having done that since early on, that was the first instrument you picked up as far as.
Yeah. Well, I started out in playing drums and marching band, and in band, I played different instruments, but once I heard and got a taste of rock and roll and knew that it had to be that. And the instrument bass as the instrument always intrigued me. It just always felt right to me.
You said earlier, performances are online on YouTube. So where out online can they find you?
We did have a channel, a Blind Piece YouTube channel, but I think that's down now. You can just type in Blind Piece Live, and that's the first thing that pops up.
Are you on Reverb Nation?
Yeah, we're on Blind Pieces on Reverb Nation. I actually have a Reverb Nation of my own. I actually have a SoundCloud also that's got pretty much all the stuff I've done. I've got 3 or 4 different catalogs on there, and so that pretty much covers the gamut of my stuff on the SoundCloud. But Blind Piece we have a Facebook page. We have the YouTube video. We have the Reverb Nation.
But they can start with you and lead from there. Go to Reverb Nation, go to SoundCloud and look for Derek Lester.
Yes.
And from there, and we're looking forward to hearing some from Blind Piece. You guys are in the process of recording material.
Yes. We're writing more and getting ready to record.
Down the road, we will have to have the band back.
I would love it.
All right. Well, Derek, I appreciate you making the trip and coming to talk with us about your music.
Well, thanks for having me down here. I really am honored. I mean, I'm just blessed. I'm blessed.
Thank you, and you have a great night. This has been the 9 o'clock news local edition on Rock 93.7.